I see from, what I see from the current state is that some exchanges are fully regulated, so they gather all the information about their customers. For example, Kraken has really huge form for any customer. It's like many pages, and you have to fill everything. All owners of company who trades there, and we are coming to this situation where we will have like whitelisted exchanges that operate with whitelisted addresses. And then as soon as this list of addresses gets leaked to the internet, then anonymity is completely destroyed. So everybody will be able to see who transacted with whom and when and why and so on and so forth. And it might be a problem. And yeah, there were some ideas that we need to change it somehow, at the same time providing anonymity, but allowing some parties, like auditors, to understand who was the initiator of suspicious transaction. So, yeah, kind of the problem, basic problem like this. A little bit about myself. My name is Pavel Kravchenko. I'm from Ukraine. I studied cryptography there for 9 years. First in the university, like master's, then PhD. Like my research topic was public infrastructures, identity-based infrastructure, so a lot of math, yeah, and standards, so on and so forth. What I like to do is to spread information about cryptocurrencies. When I first heard about Bitcoin, it was last year. I mean, heard and really got interested. I started doing seminars for companies, for entrepreneurs, just to tell them that this is a cool technology, you can apply it, even if the price is like going like this, but you can take this technology and apply it to your business in this way or that way. You can build any infrastructure on top of it, secure, and that's where cryptography basically is needed. Because before that, it's like, who knows, why do we need this cryptography? We already have like network protection, we have firewalls, and we don't need much. Then, what I've done, I created an academic course about cryptocurrencies. It consisted from 15 lectures. I've conducted it twice in universities in Ukraine, specifically for students that study information security. And after that, I took best students and created like a research lab. So I pay a little salary to students, and they work on different cryptocurrency projects, like open source. Right now, I work as a chief cryptographer at Tembusu Systems. This is a startup from Singapore that tries to solve this problem. Before that, I was a cryptographer at Stellar. Maybe, yeah, the same founder as from Ripple. Okay, so the problem. Oh, okay. Something written. Pictures. If we have cash, then basically bank or government doesn't know which banknotes do we have. When you come to electronic money, it means that bank knows which banknotes are in your pocket. And it can trace all transactions between you and somebody else. Maybe you've heard stories when some girl, she didn't even know that she was pregnant. She went to a store, and her behavior of buying things has been changed. And like in a week, the store sent her an advertisement that, okay, now you need probably this, this, and this. And her father was really pissed off because, I mean, he didn't know as well. And it was a huge scandal in the US that the shop can get through data mining, can get so personal information. Yeah, especially if you can trace all credit card payments, that's ideal way to trace you. And cryptocurrencies basically don't change anything. We even have a public database, blockchain, and if we have whitelist addresses, then for sure anonymity will be 0. But it's not only one problem. We still have some level of anonymity, and anonymity at some point anonymity is perceived as a dangerous thing. Have somebody heard about dark coin, Monero, mixing pools? Like criminals are there, so they mix their bitcoins. So, and our perception is usually, okay, that's probably a bad thing. Why do we need this? So on and so forth. But at the same time, we need anonymity. And other thing, the problem is very good explained by this link. It's a Gendel Brown blog. That when you move money, when you move IOU between people, basically it's obligations of some banks, that very good customers, KYC customers can move money, but then in between they can transact with some terrorists. And bank, if you redeem the money, it will not know who was the previous owner of this crypto token, actually of money. This could be a huge problem for the bank later, when government reveals that it was a terrorist involved in this money movement. And banks obviously don't want to be involved in this situation. But how can they know who was the owner of this token before? At the same time, without breaching the anonymity of everybody involved into the chain. And here comes the problem in general. Ensure that only pre-approved users can transact, but without breaching their anonymity. At the same time, the audit may be possible. Here stated should, but it may be possible to reveal the initiator of suspicious transaction. So blockchain is open, and for example, government can see, okay, somebody is sending money to North Korea. Who is that guy? And the last one is very crucial, but the most complicated, is how to make sure that all inquiries of the auditor of the government to reveal the identity of the sender of money are recorded and everybody knows about this inquiry. Otherwise, we will have a big brother problem again. So this is the basic understanding of the problem, basic requirements. That was how it was sent to me, that I was needed to solve this, to create some mathematical solution to solve this problem. So the solution is, the sketch of solution is like this. We attach to each transaction some proof of identity, which is just a piece of data. And this piece of data represents that, like, I am as a user is pre-approved. But at the same time, it's unlinkable, so I can produce two proof of identities for two transactions, but still nobody can connect these two transactions to each other. Then, to ensure anonymity, we need to use one-time addresses, because otherwise, yeah, the chain analysis over the blockchain, you show who was the initiator of each transaction. So it's like in Monero, Darkcoin, we use the most advanced techniques like stealth addresses and one-time addresses, and so on. Then to to solve the problem of corresponding of the name to the address, we can use federated addresses, and we can use it as a public infrastructure. So design for public infrastructure is already in place. Yes?
What's a federated address?
Federated address means that there is a correspondence between your public key and your identity. Like it's a certificate. Basically, it's a certificate. Then, solution allows you to create arbitrary amount of groups of users that, like, group means some territory or virtual territory that users belong to. It could be like citizens of Switzerland or citizens of Germany or employees of this company or something like that. So some instance that has basically users, that is registering users. We allow to do revocation of identities. So even if you get the identity, later on, your identity may be revoked. It's needed basically if somebody has died or left the company or changed the nationality, or citizenship, something like that. And then the last one is that we provide, like, the private keys are stored only by the user. Because you can do things very easily, like pseudo-anonymity, when government is able to reconstruct the user's private key and then track all his spendings. It was done like 25 years ago. It was a crypto system, so-called fair crypto system. It was created by Mikali in the United States, and then the US government bought a patent from this guy and created a so-called, again, fair crypto system where the key was distributed between different parties, and then at some point it could be, all messages could be decrypted, and user could be impersonated. We require that only user controls private keys, and it means that user cannot be impersonated. What's next? Some diagram. How it can be done. We have a user, Alice. She creates her private keys at her own computer. It's a private key from her wallet. It could be a seed from HD wallet, something like this. And he creates key from group signature. I will explain later on what does it mean. So it's a special type of signature. And then she provides basically documents, IDs that verifies that she is a legitimate member of some group. It could be a government or again a company or something else. Just she provides a proof that she is a legitimate user. And she establishes a key pair. So after this protocol, she gets a final key, and the server gets her public key. And server stores this key somewhere on some database. So now server can identify her by this public key. But before that or later, it depends on the scheme that we are using, server issues the group public key. It's just one public key that is valid, that corresponds to all users inside this group. So,
does that mean that every user with their individual private keys can decrypt anything encrypted with the group public key?
It's not about decryption, it's about signature.
Signature.
Right. So in Bitcoin, everyone has a key pair, a private key, public key. When you sign something with private key, it can be verified by your public key. And with this technique, I will explain it more later, there is only one public key for the whole group. And when somebody signs, it can be verified according to this public key. So she establishes these key pairs, and then she can transact. So she sends on step number 5, she sends a transaction to the network, and then processing node, miner, whatever, can verify your signature under transaction using public key that is published on the internet. And then if it's correct, if she is a valid member of the group, the transaction is added to the blockchain. It also means that she can send money to a completely new address of a user that even hasn't joined the system yet. Because money is sent as in Bitcoin just to public key. So Bob can generate key pair on its own computer, key pair from wallet, provide it to Alice. Alice will send money to that, to that address, and Bob will wait. Bob will wait, and he will not be able to send this money until he will do the same with his group key, until he will receive the group key through all this chain. So, but this is possible. So you don't need to actually have like a registration process to receive money. This is sometimes a very cool feature. Some additional features. Identity can be revoked. So even if you lost your phone or your identity was stolen, you can come to the CEO of the company or government and say, my identity was stolen, please revoke this identity and issue me a new identity. Identity means just this key pair. That's it. So that's fine, and you can basically solve this. Your wallet recovery key can be shared between friends. It's not so complicated feature. You may create a situation when not only the sender of money is revealed later on, but also a recipient, what I will explain a little bit later. And you can track a particular account's transactions. So what you can do is to track all spendings of Alice. You will not see it from the blockchain. You have to go through all transactions, but you may track only her spendings. That's also possible. Here we have another issue. How to prevent government, in some cases. I'm not telling you about exact system. It's not a system that's designed for one government. It's just a platform, explaining the platform that allows you to build any kind of relationship. We'll explain a little bit later. So for a situation where the group manager is the government, you could build a system where the power of the government is distributed between several organizations, like court system, prosecutor, and I don't know, main post office, whatever. So they have to cooperate to register you and to reveal your identity later on. You can build nested or hierarchical groups. It means that you can come to the government and say, please register me. The government will issue you, you will negotiate a key pair, you will receive a pseudonym, then you will come to the bank and say, I was registered, and you will not provide your identity. You will say, I was registered by the government, please open an account for me. Bank will see that you were really registered, and it will create another pseudonym for you, another key pair. And then you will transact, attaching the proof of identity that was issued by your bank. So bank itself cannot reveal your identity. It can only reveal the pseudonym. So it has to cooperate with the government. And the same for government. Government cannot itself see who is transacting. It has to cooperate with bank. I mean, names of the parties may be like whatever. You can also, that's I'm working on right now because it's the most complicated feature. Initially the idea was to store this proof of identity with each transaction in the blockchain or distributed ledger. So it will be public. But there is no way to ensure that government itself or with cooperation with bank will hiddenly reveal everybody's transactions, because this operation doesn't require any asking the network or request to the network. You just apply your master private key to something and see who was the initiator. So the idea is to split the proof of identity on parts and store it in a made-safe approach in the network on different processing nodes, every time different processing nodes. So it won't be stored in the blockchain directly. So later on, government will need to ask the network to provide these particles to reconstruct the proof of identity, and then only then reveal. And because a lot of parties will store it, it will be very hard for the government to hiddenly obtain all these particles without being noticed. So somebody will tweet it, government asked me to provide this piece without official request to the blockchain. But it requires you as a user to provide a proof that this proof of identity was split in a correct way, which is the main issue. So this problem is also considered. Some solution details. We still coming to the group signature scheme. Yeah.
Consider this scenario. A company issues shares on a distributed ledger. It wants anyone to be able to transact on that ledger, but it also wants the identity to be revealed, because if you're the CEO of a large company, you want to know who your shareholders are.
Okay.
And now, let's say I'm the CEO of a large company. I issue my shares on distributed ledger. I want to know who my shareholders are.
Yeah.
And I want to be interoperable with your system.
Like the most straightforward approach is to, you can see from the blockchain who owns your shares. Like simplest example, it's owned by people from 10 nations, right? So you have to ask every group manager to reveal the identity at some point. But I mean, maybe it's more simple. Maybe this case doesn't require anonymity at all. If it's a public record, so you have to know, you have a requirement to see who is transacting with your shares. Maybe you can attach just some identifier. And this identifier will link to identity someone's database. So you can basically attach your federated username, and that's it. So maybe you don't need anonymity in KYC in this case.
So the user needs anonymity from other users and other non-company entities, but he needs the company to know. And the company doesn't also want to maintain a group, because that is infrastructure that the company doesn't want to build. So if the company wants something that is that can plug into, not build any infrastructure at its end, be interoperable with the other.
It's a good question. Like from a mathematical point of view, it's not a problem. It's probably a question how to organize this process of revealing the identities. So some organizational procedures. Okay, here when we need to understand who is the holder, we need to ask these parties this request has to be signed by the CEO of the company. So, I mean, that proves that only CEO can get this information, nobody else. So, it's probably, it's not a problem from this perspective. So, you can build this type of technology on top of it. We still coming to group signature. What is group signature? So it allows you to produce unlinkable proof of identity. We used Stellar code base as a transaction engine because it allows you to issue any kind of asset. It's quite lightweight to some extent. So yeah, it was simple to plug in. The system is still decentralized because you can have as many group managers as you can imagine, and they can be distributed as well. Their power can be distributed. So group manager is in charge of registering users, creating policies for them, who can join and who can transact, whatever. It keeps track of all users. It stores information that is needed to reveal later on the identity. Can open the signature. It can distribute or redistribute parameters or revoke users on its own decision. And the last thing is that there is no coin in the system. So, as I see, one of the biggest problems with systems that don't have anonymous transaction processing. For example, Ripple, Stellar. Some examples. They have coin, but the coin is the main source of anonymity. Because when you have gateway will be compliant with local law. We know that now all exchanges will be compliant at some point. And they track who are their users. But the coin, which is not linked to any gateway, is the main source of anonymity, because terrorists can use this coin. And then I'm not sure that banking system will implement these protocols in a pure way, because they don't know who controls this coin and how it will behave in the future, because it really affects the working system. So we decided to remove it. So it's completely, let's say, it's not related. The system is not controlled by it. The system will not be tied to a specific company. It will be open source. So group signature. What is group signature? Basically, group signature is just a technique of normal digital signature that allows you to sign a message on behalf of some group. And there is a group manager in it. Maybe you've heard about Monero, crypto node, like the most anonymous cryptocurrency. It uses a ring signature. I have a special presentation about anonymity, but some short description. Ring signature is different from group signature because it doesn't have group manager. So you can build a group yourself, taking public keys of any user in the system, and creating a signature that states that somebody out of this group signed the message. And then nobody can see who was that. So there is a very good article, How to Leak a Secret, from, I think, Shamir, when he describes that it's very easy to leak a secret from the White House when you, as a Snowden, not Snowden, okay, the guy who wants to do that anonymously, can provide a proof that somebody out of White House actually signed that, but without revealing who am I. So quite cool technique. It's used in Monero. So group signature has a group manager who is able to later on reveal who was the initiator, who was the signer. Some features of it. yeah, as you can understand, only member of the group can sign. Anyone who has a public key of the group can check the signature, but verifier can only see that the member of the group signed. And that's it. No identity involved. Nobody can forge the signature. So even group manager cannot create a key that will be seen as users. And only group manager can reveal the initiator. So somebody out of these three people signed a message, and then the verifier sees that, okay, somebody signed the message. He knows it for sure, but no way to understand. So, what we are going to achieve is this solution. We want to create a standard for compliant money transfer solution. We don't want to build just a single solution that suits one company, one government, on one use case, because it's to be useless. Every government or company in the world has own procedures, has own requirements to KYC. So government of Switzerland has own procedures, government of United States own procedures, and as soon as the company complies with the local law, it's fine. So this standard has to be created, and then we create an open source platform to build applications on top of it. So you can create Switzerland, be compliant, and be cool. That's it. And we want to create a global network which will be run on top of this system that will not have any incentive model or hidden coin, but probably will be used like monetized through like fees or license structure or something that is more understandable for businesses, banks, financial institutions. So this is the goal. I have some slides that describes zero knowledge proofs that are building block for group signatures, but I think we can skip this part. If somebody is interested, the presentation will be online, or we can go over them later and come to questions. Yeah. Yes. The questions will be most exciting.
But you can find this information somewhere else. I would very much like to see exactly that.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. Here I explain how the zero knowledge proof work.
But will the presentation be available afterwards?
Yeah, yeah. So, okay, small inside. Maybe you've heard about zero knowledge proof. This is a technique that allows you to prove something without revealing what is it. That I know, for example, a password from this computer, but I can prove it without telling you the password. Or even in most complicated ways, you can prove that you know solution from Sudoku game without providing a solution. I mean, I've seen even a scientific paper how they provide the proof. I mean, it's crazy what you can do, and you can prove whatever you want. But yeah, proof could be complex. And the proof looks like just a string of bytes. That's it. Very interesting. Yeah. So yes.
So you need to store that information somewhere, and you want to store it on different nodes. What's the incentive to run a node? I mean, there's no coin, so I get no transaction fee. Who pays me for running a node, or why should I do that?
It's a good question. Solution to this, answer to this question is not technical, so it's more business side.
So it's more like running a Bitcoin node. I mean, it helps your business,
but you don't
interact with.
Spend electricity.
There's no direct revenue. Okay.
It might be some incentive from some group managers. In the future, I think the companies will do that. Companies who do financial services, so shops, exchanges, gateways, and then they need to run a node because they get information faster.
Mhm.
So that's yes.
So the proof is non-interactive.
No.
It is an interactive.
You can build
Zero
interactive and non-interactive, but non-interactive is easier because you can actually store it. Yeah, some difference. Proof could be string of bytes. It's in this case it's non-interactive. It means that it can be sent over the network and can be reviewed later on, and yeah, everybody can see that it's correct proof. Interactive proofs, that means that I need to communicate with the party who verifies the proof just right now, and this party cannot prove my statement to somebody else later. But this is needed. These non-interactive proofs are used in authentication protocols. So when you provide the proof that you are a legitimate user to some server, you don't want this proof be taken later on and used by hacker. Yeah, so.
So this one is non-interactive.
Non-interactive, yeah.
The second thing is, I'm curious that do you see your solution as solving the problem of theft of money? Theft of money. So
Theft of money.
if you assume that there are different ledgers,
Yeah.
and each ledger has defined nodes, so the
Yeah.
mining nodes are known, and now to do a transaction I have to prove to the node that I own an identity.
Right.
So even if I manage to steal some funds, my identity would be linked across the ledgers in the world.
Yes.
And so wherever I take the funds in the end, that ledger can freeze my funds.
Yes, there is a problem. You can steal the identity as well, because it's also just a key, and then you attach a fake other's identity to the transaction. But
But then if the other person revokes his identity, and then
you
my
will be-
identity
right.
could be frozen.
Right, right. It's also, I would say, not technical, but more organizational solution to this problem. Recently, Ripple introduced the feature of like frozen accounts. So Gateway can freeze accounts, can decide which accounts can be frozen, or all accounts can be frozen by this gateway. For example, if gateway key is compromised, then yeah, for sure you need to freeze everything, then move to another instance and then run it again. So, like, organizational solution to this problem can be that in a system where only users with identity transact, you can, in case of investigation, in case of fraud, of theft of money, some user who was a victim can come to the government and says, okay, I was robbed. Money went there. Government will ask the recipient to provide a receipt for this money, because for every operation, usually you get a receipt. It could be electronic receipt, email, or written receipt. And then if receipt is not provided, probably money was really stolen. So it could become investigation. And you can also build, this is quite easy to implement, a system where not only the sender is identified, so not only proof of identity of the sender is added, but proof of identity of the recipient is also added. It means that, but it requires interaction. For example, like BIP 70 describes this somehow. So I want to buy something from shop, and I send a request, and I receive an answer, response, and we can exchange information in this communication. So I can add my proof of identity to the transaction, and the shop can add its own proof of identity. Also providing a proof that it owns the address, like Bitcoin address. So it couldn't provide me a terrorist public key so to compromise me later. I mean, so you can prove for some transactions, for example, over 1 million, that money were moved by agreement of 2 parties at the same time.
Like this flips the problem around, right? Like instead of cryptographic technology, like the biggest problem is that whatever we are building is irreversible. So funds once stolen are gone. They're completely gone. And this is, I think, the fundamental thing that is that it will be very hard to convince the bank to issue assets on a cryptographic ledger because it's an irreversible one.
Yeah, that's the problem as well.
But now if you flip around the problem that funds once stolen can always be frozen, then that actually becomes even more powerful than the current system.
But this is only possible in a system that is not anonymous, fully anonymous. So in Bitcoin, nobody would like to frozen accounts because it's an anonymous system. But if you have already people that were registered, that were approved, then it's easy to implement. You don't break anybody's rights. So just different scenario, different requirements. You can apply one feature that you can build. You can build a group, not only hierarchical or nested, where the group manager is able only to register users, but not able to reveal the identities. So imagine that you received like an identity card, and you could show it in every shop and buy some beer, but it's not recorded anywhere, and even if it's recorded, nobody can reveal who was it. So your anonymity is like 100% inside this group. It could be a very cool feature for some probably countries that will say some territories that we will not reveal identity of our citizens. That's it. We made this law. It could be fine for them. You can also build a system with another group signature. So you will be able to apply any group signature. They are just different. The key size is different and the group signature size is different. You can build a system where majority of the group needs to cooperate to reveal the initiator of some transaction. So if you have some closed community and somebody out of this community, I don't know, did something wrong, then community gather it and reveal who was it. So it's not a group manager, but the community manager. So you can build even these things.
And you can do it hierarchically.
Yeah.
Many levels.
Yeah, with help of pseudonyms, yeah.
You have this methodology described somewhere, where you can read about it.
There is a white paper, draft, in a peer review. Like, this hierarchical methodology is not described there, but it's the question of selection of correct group signature. So, Romanian. Yeah.
What happens if the group private key is lost or stolen?
If it's lost or stolen, you will be able to reveal the identities. For some groups, it could be not only the key, but some registration list, but it doesn't matter, some secret information. And it will be possible to add users to the group. So yeah, you become a group manager. So you have to redistribute a new group parameters, saying that, okay, you were hacked.
So basically the group has to be re-established.
Yeah.
In that sense.
Unless you could
The same as with public infrastructure. So
unless you could build in this feature you also talked about, where you could revoke an entire group.
it means basically the same. But these techniques are already developed in public infrastructure standards like X509, like that. So just you already, these techniques are already created.
And sorry for the short noise, but can we just open
Window?
more than one window for a short time? Because
Yeah.
I think the air is running low, right? But it's unfortunately quite noisy also. Udo, can you just to let fresh air floating?
Quick exchange of air.
One windows. And it's quicker.
Let's take this one also.
What do you think if a private bank for wealthy individuals would offer their customers to invest in Bitcoin? Would they be able to use this type of system rather than store it externally?
It depends on the bank. So, I mean, at some point, these kind of features will be implemented because they're easier to manage, and you can verify the actions of each party. Just a new technology.
You don't see banks as your clients in the future?
Yeah.
Yes?
Sure. I mean, it could be two types of ecosystems. Anonymous, which like Bitcoin, Ethereum, or all processing nodes anonymous, and you can apply the same techniques there. Just at some point you cannot enforce that. Because here, in a non-anonymous system, where all processing nodes are known, and where it's basically a financial system, where everybody trusts each other, you can enforce processing of transactions that contain proof of identity. And anonymous, you can just recommend or say, okay, as a merchant, I will accept transactions that contain proof of identity. So on individual level, you can make these decisions, but you cannot enforce them.
And what do you see as the main challenges in acceptance of the system? Those are
Sorry.
like top two.
I mean, first explain how it works, because people need to understand. It's the same story with Bitcoin. People don't use Bitcoin unless they understand what is it. Otherwise, they think that it's a Ponzi scheme. Idea to make it more more easily accepted is that interfaces are the same. Like if you take Ripple does a lot of work of pushing banks to integrate the system, and then at some point like this it can be switched to this system because the interfaces of communication are the same. So if standard is created, and standard, I'm sure standard will not contain any coin. It's like
But by standard, do you mean that
like RFC or ISO or something like that.
it's like worldwide one?
Yeah.
So what's the main market or what's the entry point would be for this?
Financial institutions. So banks, merchants, governments, companies.
Okay, but what's the legislation area that would be?
I would say the system has to be really independent, the technical solution. That's why it should not contain coins inside. And then each country will ask companies to add requirements. Like they will ask local group managers to enforce some policies. In some, like every bank could be a group manager. So this example from when I already designed this solution, I read this paper from Richard Brown, who is a general architect in IBM, when he described this situation with banks and customers and terrorists and these anonymous tokens. And we start communicating with him, and so basically this is a solution for his projections. So banks will need that, and each bank will become like group manager, will establish own group, of its own customers, so it will understand, okay, this person is my customer. This person is a customer of my bank from the same country. If it's FDIC insured, I might trust this customer as well. This customer is from North Korea. I mean, probably I will not take any money from him. So, yeah.
Maybe you covered it already while I was running around looking for chairs. How is trust established between two groups and group managers? I mean,
there is no trust between. It's not a technical issue. It just, I know, for example, I'm Germany, yeah, German government, and here is Swiss government, and we have some agreements of whatever, compliance, and then we know, okay, I trust Swiss government to register only like good customers, good citizens. So I will accept any transactions from this.
But I know from where it comes, of course. I need to know the group.
Yeah, you need to know the group, and you will know the group because you will verify the transaction. You will receive a public key that corresponds to this proof of identity.
So if some fraudster group forms, which
sorry.
If some fraudster group forms, which allegedly KYCs its members, but actually it doesn't.
Yeah.
I will know this comes from fraudster group, so I reject the transaction.
Yeah.
Okay, this needs another technical layer to actually reject the transaction, but your concept is just about verifying the identity or trusting another one who has verified the identity. It's not about doing transactions or rejecting.
You always return a transaction, even if you can't reject it.
Even if transaction is recorded in the blockchain, the party who receives funds may reject paying in response, saying, okay, we don't allow you to buy anything from us.
Has anyone already made a step further and say we build a protocol which involves maybe a new coin, but which just accepts transactions from a white labeled address?
You mean in existing systems or?
Billing?
Oh.
Thinking of billing? Just something.
I mean, the system exists. Like it's Visa. I mean, it's Visa. They accept payments from. The prototype of this system is working. It's like journal testing, but yeah.
So you build the software.
Yeah.
Intellectual property around this algorithm is completely free?
It's probably not a question to me, but to the CEO of the company, so let's discuss it. I mean, it will be open source, that's the desire, but...
Do you have any patent applications that you filed?
No.
Very difficult to pay for this.
You can do that. I investigated and we thought about that because some investors asked, and I've seen a lot of like stuff that were close, like not in this field, but I mean recent, like in Bitcoin world, in cryptocurrency world, patents are not probably the most welcome things to do.
Different way of using the existing technology.
No, my question was about the BNCSW algorithm itself.
Oh, we implemented it ourselves. Yeah.
So the primitives, none of them are.
I mean, there were no primitives. It was only paper, white paper. So we built the group signature. I built the group signature.
So basically, in theory, this way of doing group signatures is accessible to the world, and it's not going to be a monopoly on the market.
I mean, it's always a question of trust to the team that does things. So anybody can take Ethereum code and run the same system, but I don't think anybody will succeed.
Like RSA was patent protected for 20 years. RSA was patent protected for 20 years, made the 3 authors millionaires, but this is not the case for this algorithm.
I mean the patent. No, I haven't heard. I've checked. It's not patented.
Okay.
And even if it will, I know, you can use another C group signature. There are many, like dozens of them. So.
Will you try to build a community around it?
It's a good question. Probably. Community will consist of bankers. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like recent days, I hear more and more about KYC, because everybody who builds an exchange needs to be compliant. That the main concern is not the technology but compliance. How we are going to be compliant? How we ensure that only legitimate users transact on this exchange.
But if I'm an exchange,
it might be that if it solves the real problem of community, then sure.
how can I get started with this system? If I'm an exchange, what is required from my side?
I expect that almost in the future, most of exchanges will have some inter-exchange protocol when they basically move liquidity between them. It might be Ripple, Stellar, open transactions or Hyperledger. So then you will need to inject this model inside. So we can apply it to any model.
But it's not ready yet. Now
It will be, yeah, it's based on Stellar, which is fully compliant with Ripple. So it's the most technology is most adopted through competitors. So it will be easy to integrate at some point. As soon as you convince them, then it's easy. With Ripple, it's even more easier, I would say,
but
because they have a special memo tag. You can add there the proof.
No more questions?
So you hoping this becomes a de facto standard approved by a regulator, by an association of some kind,
I
by
hope
a
so.
government? Well, what's your roadmap to getting the first one, the first kind of blessing?
I would say the first one could be the Singapore government, because we have strong connections to Singapore government, and they're interested. Banks from Singapore are interested. They were like people from banking industry were investors to this project.
And why would they adopt it? What would be the reason?
Because it solved their problem. Like cryptocurrency is basically a hot topic right now. Everybody wants to implement it in their system to become like real technology pioneer, right? Like Feeder Bank implemented Ripple, and some banks consider to do so. And then, as soon as they realize that they need to be compliant, then why not? As soon as interfaces are the same, it's very easy to do that. You don't need to change, you don't need to explain it one more time. You just say, okay, this piece of data is needed to provide you this, and these features. And you handle it like this.
So this would provide a bank or a group of banks with a regulatory framework
Yeah.
to deploy a digital currency product for their customer
Yeah.
base. And what's the demand from, I mean, how much demand do you see, and how do you quantify that to deploy this kind of a product? But not necessarily to use your solution, but to just deploy digital currency, period. Is that, are you saying Singapore is kind of a logical place for that?
That's a big question. What I can say is that every major bank, every big bank in the world, they already has a research group.
Sure.
And like two weeks ago, it was a peer-to-peer financial system workshop in Frankfurt. It was hosted by Deutsche Bundesbank in their headquarters, the office. So it means, and it was a lot of people from European Commission, from European Central Bank, Deutsche Bank. It means Federal Reserve of the United States, so it means they're interested. I'm not sure what is the pregnancy cycle, but I mean,
actually, digital banks making a digital currency may not be the interesting application here. What is really interesting about this system is you build like a cross-bank forwards market. Like 20 banks come together to create a forwards market, and that forwards market is essentially one ledger. The maintenance of that ledger is itself distributed among say 100 banks. So all the banks can trust the maintenance of the ledger. And then your identity system allows that only the customers of these 20 banks can transact on the ledger. So you make a common infrastructure by which a lot of parties can do arbitrary contracts of arbitrary complexity. So like forwards, swaps, anything.
Yeah, obviously
that becomes interesting.
The system at some point will be global. I mean, I'm sure that system of this type will be global because it's needed. Some groups, like some communities, may implement their own system, which will be closed for special needs, but so China will implement own system, somebody else own system, but it might be like it will be only one or two SWIFT like companies, or even zero.
Is necessarily bound to cryptocurrency. I mean, it's what you described is absolutely versatile, which means it doesn't have to be even a digital, but it should be some kind of digital asset which is bound to it, but it does not necessarily have to.
Everything.
I mean, it's just a vision, right? But if it's used for any kind of non-cryptocurrency product and then widely adopted and accepted by banks, the next step to saying, hey, if it works for non-cryptocurrency, then it will, of course, also work for cryptocurrency. What I'm trying to reach at is normally businesses ours has some difficulties with banks, right, in regards to do we really apply the same compliance rules as they are? Not that they are that strict, but it's simply one of the arguments which keeps us normally out of the club. So. Finding a system which is applied by banks, which does not necessarily have to do anything with cryptocurrency, which can later be applied to cryptocurrency as well, is kind of appealing. You get my point, right?
Yeah, but actually there is no big difference between cryptocurrency and digital asset or digital receipt. It's just a piece of data and with signature, and that's it. And you can track anything, even not accountable things, some unique piece. I know this startup that builds a system that keeps track of pieces of art, like paintings. So it's, I don't know what it does, or we created some hash, and then signs this hash, the owner of this masterpiece signs the hash and transfers to somebody. It's like unique objects on the blockchain.
So what's the business case for, you said that you have some relationships with banks in the Singapore market. What's the business case for them to use digital currency at all? What feedback do you get from them on that question?
We all understand that, I mean, it will be more efficient for them at some point. They will save on infrastructure.
For interbank transactions.
And for internal storage of data. That's the case. On speed of transactions and security. So I'm not sure how exactly they understand it, but they understand it. They are probably not ready right now, just because it's like regulation and we have to make a code review and see some standard approved by some parties, but the process is already started. That's a huge question.
Are there any B2C business case? Because you just described a B2B business case among kind of the club of banks. Is there any business case outside of that club?
Any that you can imagine. I think just if you get the idea, then you may build some system where like a merchant issues bonus points to customers, then these customers transact, redeem, something like that. Just haven't thought about a lot about that. I mostly solve the technical problem.